battle for 2020 officially kicks off with the Iowa caucuses just a few hours from now. The Hawkeye state could prove to be a pivotal moment in the Democratic race. The party's establishment is bracing for a Bernie Sanders surge, while sleepy Joe Biden's allies are preparing for the worst. Here's the top candidates making their final pitches.
Happy Caucus Day. You are part of an absolute force that is sweeping through the state of Iowa right now.
I'm feeling good. There's a lot of energy out there. There's a lot of enthusiasm. Been in a lot of counties all over the country, all over the state, and it feels good.
Commit today to caucus for me. Agree to do phone calls, knock on doors.
Tomorrow night is the beginning. Yes. It is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
While Democrats battle it out in Iowa, President Trump continues to steal the spotlight. And there's growing concern among the party that 2020 candidates don't stand a chance against Trump, especially when facing attacks like these.
I'm watching, and I have little nicknames for all of them, but you just.
I'm sure they love your nicknames.
No, but they're accurate.
We'll start with Joe Biden.
I just think of Sleepy. I just watch him. He's Sleepy Joe.
Hunter Biden.
Where's Hunter?
Bernie Sanders.
Well, I think he's a communist. You mentioned now Elizabeth Warren. She's not true to it. I call her fairy tale, because everything's a fairy tale.
All right, Juan Williams. So you're in Iowa now. What have you heard? What are you seeing out there? Where do you see the energy leading to, if you can give us a sense of that?
Well, the polls and a lot of people are just saying they assume that Bernie Sanders comes out on top here, Jesse. But it's by 3 to 5 points at best, and so you're going to still see Joe Biden right there. And then behind that, you get Pete Buttigieg coming in, maybe a little farther down. And the questions of the night have to do with Amy Klobuchar, the senator from neighboring Minnesota. How will she do? And there's a lot of pessimism, and I was surprised to hear this about Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. But as you know, she, for a while, had really surged. And now it looks like this is Bernie Sanders' surge at just the right moment, and it could be crushing for Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, I mean, she had the Medicare for All problem, Dana. She was kind of out of commission in Washington, D.C. for the last 2 weeks. And then she played the victim card against Bernie, and she's looking like she's tailing off a little bit. Do you agree with Juan that it's kind of a two-person race now in Iowa between Biden and Bernie?
I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I think anybody, including all of us here who think that we know what's going to happen tonight, we don't. The rules changed since the last time around in 2016. There's a new threshold you have to hit at 15%. Then it goes to a second ballot and alignment, and it's a little bit confusing. I think that the end result tonight could be fairly muddled. Or you could see Bernie Sanders do really quite well. I think that Mayor Pete or even Andrew Yang could do well here. They have a lot of enthusiasm from young people. Don't forget Amy Klobuchar, who really campaigned really hard in the rural areas. She could possibly do well. But I think for Liz Warren, if she doesn't do well here, and Bernie Sanders does, and he goes to New Hampshire, the king again, I think it will be really interesting to see what she decides to do. Does she continue, or does she just get behind him?
Yeah, I mean, if I were running against Bernie Sanders, I'd say you already admitted that you're going to raise taxes, Katie, on the middle class. I don't know why they're not doing that. Can I play a soundbite of one of your favorite people, Chris Matthews, on MSNBC? This is his interpretation of the field.
What are my thoughts? I'm not happy. I'm not happy with this field. I think they got to find a candidate for president that can beat Trump.
And you don't think anybody in this field
I'm looking. I'm still looking.
Still looking.
What's the problem?
Obvious problems. They're all problems. Bernie Sanders is not going to be president of the United States.
Wow.
I was thinking today about all of the people who haven't made it to the Iowa caucuses. Like Beto was supposed to be like the next Obama, who totally had this big moment and was on the front of Vanity Fair and then fizzled out. Kamala Harris, she kept saying, I'm going to move to Iowa. That didn't happen. So it's really hard to gauge what's going on the ground. Polling is notoriously difficult in Iowa. But Bernie Sanders has been here before, and he doesn't want to lose again. So he's been able to learn from maybe some of the mistakes or things that they didn't do last time and really get out there and knock on doors. And I think Elizabeth Warren, as to Dana's point, if she doesn't do well, which I don't think she will, double in New Hampshire or Iowa, she'll probably drop out. And for Joe Biden, look, they've been saying forever that it doesn't matter if he wins Iowa. It doesn't matter if he wins New Hampshire. They're banking on South Carolina to get him through. That's an interesting strategy, and their excuses for losing, if that happens tonight, will be interesting to pay attention to if they change their strategy moving forward.
Yeah, setting expectations pretty low. All right, Greg.
Yes.
I know you're going to be watching the caucuses tonight.
Oh, like a hawk.
Like a hawk.
I'll be a hawkus on the caucus.
Iowa Hawkeyes.
What do you think about Iowa? You excited?
Well, first of all, you're welcome, America. This is the day after the Super Bowl, when 60% of the 5 are hungover. Unlike the 18 million people who decided not to show up for work, we are here because we love you, even though I'm holding onto this table, praying that I make it through without vomiting on Jesse's nice suit. All right, here's the interesting thing about this thing that what Chris Wallace is talking about. A lot of interesting people are not running. They're not participating. So this crew seems very weak and bland. It reminds me when you were a kid and your parents bought that variety set of breakfast cereals.
Oh, I love those.
Those were great for vacation, but by the end of the first week, all that was left was Special K and Bran Flakes. Always Special K, right? Weird box. And everything from Frosted Flakes to Apple Jacks, they were gone.
Right.
Well, the problem with this field, it's all Bran Flakes and Special K, especially Mayor Pete. Here's another analogy. You know, Mayor Pete is great when he's around others because he seems interesting. He's like a great secondary character in a TV show. But when they decide to spin him off, he's a flop. So you remembered how much you loved Joey on Friends. He was great. But you didn't watch Joey, did you? You let Joey die on the vine because it wasn't the same without Rachel or Ross. And the thing is, without other people to compare him to, it's not going to happen. As for Bernie, we've been talking about Bernie for a long time, and I call this the pendulum. The populist inferno that took over 2016 is now swinging back to the left. All these things are cyclical, right? So we had the populist inferno that brought in Trump. The populist inferno, same mentality, could bring Bernie into the White House. So when I hear the sentiment by Chris Matthews that it'll never happen,
yeah, right.
I said that about Trump. I was wrong.
You know,
I shouldn't have listened to. Well, never mind.
You're very good on the day after the Super Bowl.
You know why? Because I'm crying inside, Jesse.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm sitting
I
on
only
this end of
disagree
the
with you
table.
on one thing, though. I would say the Never Bernie movement is 10 times stronger than the Never Trump movement, and you can see the Never Bernie movement already pulling out all the stops, with, you know, reinvigorating the power of the superdelegates, letting the rules change so Bloomberg kid in, Hillary coming out of nowhere to drop bombs on Bernie. I just think Bernie has a lot coming if he wins Iowa and New Hampshire.
I don't know if you can hear me, Jesse, but I think that that's very true, because it's not just about a difference in style, right, or in difference in like rhetoric or demeanor or civility. It is a complete departure from a lot of things that we hold dear in America. And I think that from a policy standpoint, the enthusiasm for a Bernie candidacy, he'll have his people, and he'll have his like 40%, but I don't think the rest of the Democratic Party will enthusiastically get behind him.
I think you need to remember what happened in 2016. In 2016, the Republican establishment was so anti-Trump and didn't think Trump could beat the Democrat.
But also, that was a lot more about style than it was about policy. President Trump was, as a candidate, wasn't talking about the things like a wholesale departure of the American way of life.
Right, and I still think Bernie has only 20% of the Democratic field. I don't think he's a majority type of candidate. But